Nebraska beef makes history, first on dinner tables in China. A pair of cattlemen from Dawson County have been major players. They're both in China, and we talk to them. Hear more coming up.
The devil's spawn. I've thrown everything and the kitchen sink at it.
Plus, herbicide-resistant weeds will have expert information on this pesky problem. And Japanese beetles, another crop concern. It's time to grow. Nebraska acts fast, opening doors to what could be a huge market for U.S. beef. We talked to State Ag Director Greg Ibaugh on the phone from China, where he was part of a delegation bringing U.S. beef to that country for the first time in nearly 15 years. Ibaugh says state leaders have worked behind the scenes to make sure Nebraska was first in line, as they have done when other borders have opened.
Everybody considers U.S. beef to be the gold standard around the world. And we want to make sure we're here letting them know that in that category, Nebraska is the gold standard of U.S. beef.
Ibaugh says the Tyson plant in Lexington is one of the first 2 beef plants in all the country shipping to China. He estimates China will quickly become the #2 importer of Nebraska beef, around $200 million a year, and that's just the beginning, as the state hopes to expand with other Nebraska farm products. Governor Pete Ricketts recently loaded the first U.S. beef headed to China. The world's largest economy has a growing appetite for beef, importing more than $2.5 billion worth a year. The U.S. has been shut out of that market for 13 years until now.
We must have more access to move our product, and this is a really big win for the beef industry. So we're going to continue to move forward and work on opening more markets. But this one has been a real fun one because the opportunity is so great over there with as many people as China has.
Craig Uden serving as president of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Last month he met with Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue on Senator Deb Fischer's ranch. Now Uden and Perdue reunited in Beijing along with Nebraska Ag Director Greg Ibaugh. Governor Ricketts says the beef state is poised to benefit greatly from opening borders. We could be seeing the end of one of the most despised environmental policy for Nebraska landowners. The EPA is moving to end the Waters of the United States, or WOTUS rule. The official proposal is due in the coming days. Both Senator Ben Sasse and Congressman Adrian Smith have come out in favor of the repeal of that Obama-era regulation that has angered farmers and ranchers since its inception. Taxpayers step into a thorny situation over overgrown weeds. Folks from the Hall County Weed Board say a farmer west of Grand Island left about 1,400 acres unplanted this spring. Noxious weeds have taken over, and there's concern it could spread to neighbors. Weed Superintendent Rob Schultz sent notices and made phone calls, but says nothing has been done, so the Weed Board asked the county for money to deal with it.
And we usually take care of these things kind of on a one-to-one basis, and we've gotten along pretty good. Now, Rob's done a fine job, and it's a sad deal that we have to go this route.
The county approved around $20,000 to spray for noxious weeds, and they plan to put a tax lien on the property to recoup their money. Weeds a major problem this summer in Nebraska, especially those that are herbicide resistant. We caught up with farmers and extension educators for more.
I'm calling it the devil's spawn. I've thrown everything and the kitchen sink at it and can't kill it.
Jay Reiners doesn't hold back, talking about the weeds that have become a huge hassle.
They're just evolving faster than we can keep on top of it.
The advent of Roundup-ready crops was a godsend for farmers. Biotech crops meant corn and beans could withstand the chemical glyphosate, while weeds bit the dust.
I miss those days. You go out there and spray Roundup and everything died.
It was like a miracle because you can apply glyphosate and it is such an effective herbicide for control of number of weed species, including perennial weeds and things like that. So it's a great technology. Glyphosate is a good herbicide, but the only problem is I think we were using the same herbicide again and again.
What do you think? Which one is Palmer?
Weeds like Palmer amaranth adapted, and a single plant can produce 1 million seeds.
They are prolific seed producers.
Scientists say there are no easy answers.
Any question?
new options are coming for soybeans, but it's estimated these weeds now span 5 million acres across the state.
Glyphosate-resistant weed almost everywhere in the state.
Experts say the lesson is farmers need to rotate herbicides the way they rotate crops.
We cannot rely only on glyphosate.
The University of Nebraska conducts real-world research looking for different herbicides, different management, and different seeds. Jay Reiner says the research is spreading, but unfortunately, so are the weeds.
They're starting to throw everything in the kitchen sink at some of the stuff. And as you can see out here, it's not working either.
And weeds, the subject of this week's poll question. And in a runaway, the vast majority responding say they are very concerned about herbicide-resistant weeds. Only a handful of folks say it's not an issue. We will go deeper with more information for growers coming up later on in the show. Another concern for growers, beetles. Japanese beetles now making their presence known across Nebraska. NTV's Ifisanachi Ibo Simba has our story.
Japanese beetle, they're pretty ferocious feeders.
A destructive metallic bug is emerging in central Nebraska.
We see them on a wide range of plants.
And they have a pretty big appetite, sometimes leaving very little behind.
If they feed very heavily, they can cause a lot of holes in the leaves.
Extension educator Elizabeth Killinger says if you see one of these beetles, chances are there are more nearby.
They produce a pheromone or a scent that attracts other Japanese beetles to that same location, so that means they feed in masses,
causing concern for gardeners and farmers alike.
It's really important that farmers are out looking for these beetles in both corn and soybeans.
First identified in counties along the state's eastern border several years ago, the beetles were found as far west as Lincoln County in 2016.
The main way they travel is they hitch a ride on nursery stock that gets trucked around the state.
If you do find these pests making a feast out of your plants, there are a few things that you can do.
And the main thing is for farmers to get out and look.
Seymour says routinely inspecting crops is the best weapon we have against the bugs. But farmers seeing high levels of defoliation are encouraged to use an insecticide.
If we're seeing them in the home landscape, what we can do is if we see them and there's not very many of them, we can knock them off into soapy dishwater.
You can also use mesh coverings to keep the bugs away from plants.
The Nebraska Extension Office says these bugs will be active for the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Thanks, Iffy. Now a look at crop conditions. Winter wheat harvest is underway, just getting started in Nebraska. Meanwhile, a slight decline in corn conditions. 60% rate's good, but the amount in the excellent category has slipped. Similar numbers on soybeans. Winter wheat remains firmly in the fair to good range. First cutting of alfalfa is done, about a quarter of the way through the second cutting. Hatching new opportunities. A poultry operation brings an investment of nearly $40 million to central Nebraska. Work continues on the new Hendricks ESA operation on the south side of Grand Island. The company says it's spending about $20 million. A citizens committee recommends Grand Island spend $600,000 in incentives to help.
This is really a classic example of how important it is to have that fund available. It was really attractive to them. In addition to having the site ready, a shovel-ready site for them to look at and get started on.
And there's a big ripple effect with several barns like this that are being built in a radius around Grand Island. The total investment, around $40 million.
It's because it helps the egg economy, helps the folks out in the farm maybe have a little more income, and then not to mention the feed that all those chickens out there in those farms will be because it's specialized food that they feed them too. So it's all, I think it's good for the area.
They will be hatching egg-laying chickens around $24 million a year. Hendricks has deadlines to meet the hiring goals or they risk losing that city incentive money. Now our poll question, what do you think of the growing poultry industry in Nebraska? Do you think, hey, it's good, or, well, maybe not so good, or just not sure? Follow Grow on Twitter to cast your votes. Drought conditions return, more ahead in weather, and we visit the Gelby Association, their Junior Nationals in Grand Island.